I'm Justine.
And I'm Daryl.
And we're the Breakaway Bravehearts. We travel the world meeting fascinating people in spectacular places. Then we share their stories and review the whole experience against the principles of social tourism so that you can make your own ethical travel choices.
Today we are in Cornwall, England, looking at a magnificent view across Falmouth and the English coastline from the 16th century castle Pendennis. We've stumbled into Pendennis on a very special day. It's their annual Knights tournament. Every summer, English Heritage hosts event days that offer their visitors a hands-on history through roleplay and reenactments. At today's event, we've got knights and their squires, medieval minstrels, scribes and villagers, armourers and falconers. But we're here to meet the fool. That's a professional term, by the way. A jester with a hunger for fire, Rob Sim.
In this video, you'll get to meet Rob too, as he talks to us about his 40-year career in making people laugh and all the life lessons he's learnt along the way. And of course, we'll also give you our social tourism review of Pendennis Castle, letting you know how it rates on our BB S.T.A.R.S system. But first, let's have a bit of a laugh.
I want you all to shout, scream, clap your hands, stamp your feet, throw your babies high into the air.
Rob is a trained performer with 44 years in the industry. His huge range of skills are now put to work in the historical entertainment world, and he spends his summers travelling England entertaining the castle crowds.
Daryl was curious. Did Rob grow up dreaming of being a fire-eating jester?
Does one aspire to be one?
I mean, yeah, there are people that have made a conscious decision that they want to be a circus performer or they want to be an outdoor performer and what have you. But no, mine was just, like most of my life, it's all been accidental. I was booked to do a medieval banquet at Centre Parks years and years ago, and that sort of snowballed from there. And the joy of it is that I've been a performer all my life. I've never ever had a proper job, and I still do a job that I love, which is remarkable. I still genuinely love doing what I do. Even now, it still fills my soul to be a performer.
The tradition of jesters has gone back centuries, long before Pendennis Castle was built. There is evidence of the cultural equivalents to jesters in ancient times in Aztec, Chinese and Roman civilizations. By the time construction on Pendennis was started, in 1540, jesters were a common and well-loved feature in the royal court and had an important role keeping agitated royals and tense political situations under control using humour and distraction. Licensed fools had the privilege to talk and mock freely without being punished, allowing important messages to be safely heard.
There were also travelling fools who moved through town squares and marketplaces, offering the masses some distraction from the worries of their daily life. And this is still exactly the job that Rob does now. Thankfully, he has a few modern accessories to make the job easier, but essentially his role is still the same as it was centuries ago. He talked to us about why he loves his work and the unique life of a travelling performer.
I love performing, and I love, particularly outdoors and this sort of stuff, I love the immediacy of it, unlike the theatre. And it's all down to me. So if I'm good, it's down to me. If I'm bad, it's down to me. And also, you know instantly from an audience whether you're good or not. Unlike in the theatre where people will clap because they're polite and they do that. And people don't come and tell you you're rubbish afterwards. Whereas here, kids will shout out if they're not enjoying what I'm doing. So I love the performing side of it. And although I'm doing the same show day after day, it's always a bit different because I never know what the audience is going to do. Whereas in theatre, it's the same show every night. Audiences don't shout at you. Whereas here, anything can happen and things frequently do.
How about the double spins?
Wow!
Twice as high.
Whoa!
It's all right, I don't think anybody noticed. Where were we?
But I also actually genuinely enjoy being on the road. I sort of quite like my own company. I've got my little tent here. I sleep in my tent. I live in my tent. I cook for myself. And it actually takes me away from the world. So once I'm touring, that's all that is in my head, is performing and doing what I have to do. I don't think about car insurance or tax or any of that sort of stuff that gets in the way of the world. It's a very, very, I've got suitcase of clothes, I've got a mobile phone so I can watch a bit of telly if I want. That's it. I have, I've got a little cooker. It's a really simple way of going, I don't need possessions, I don't need stuff. I really, really love that sort of lifestyle. It doesn't have the clutter of the day-to-day world.
But while it seems like a solitary lifestyle, his days are actually filled with both new and familiar faces.
Just speaking to somebody who went, we saw you 3 weeks ago at Pendennis Castle, because a lot of people, centre their holidays around English heritage events, because it's a good way of entertaining your kids. You take them to this castle and you take them to this castle. And quite often every season I'll find people go, weren't you just at the Belsay Hall that we were at last weekend? It's like, yeah. Oh, we're going to so-and-so. Well, I'll see you there then. Yeah. But no, I've met some lovely people and all the other performers, because again, it's really nice. I'm here for 3 nights. So the musicians that are here, I happened to work with last week. The Knights, I were with some of them 2-3 weeks ago. I've not seen the Falconer for maybe 4 weeks now. So, there's a small group of us, but but we're not always at the same event at the same time. So it's, that side is really nice. So it's quite a sociable side from that world as well.
So his work days are filled with people, and as was made clear in his show, they are also filled with action. Rob was constantly on the go and did 3 fast-paced performances while we were there. Daryl asked him the secret to his fitness.
So you say you're 63 years old.
I'm 63 now.
We saw you on your head today. So you must have to keep a level of fitness.
I'm not going to lie, it gets a bit tougher every year. And if you watch the next show, you'll see there's an acrobatics things that I do.
Wow.
For my age, I am doing remarkably well. I don't really have any issues at all. So
what's your secret?
Doing a job you love. Doing this. I'm sure this is what it is, that it keeps me young.
I wanted to know why he loved it so much. What rewards does he get from his work?
Money. No, if you want an honest answer, I'm completely ego-driven. I do it for the applause. I'm not going to lie, I know exactly why I do this, because I need the approbation of strangers. I need people I've never met to go, we love you!
3 years at drama school, eh? I should have gone.
My reward is people having fun, and there's nothing clever or intelligent particularly about what I do, but it's just silly fun. And,
How many have I got?
Silly fun it may be, but of course we are talking about fire here. So Rob's biggest challenge is nature. His nemesis is the wind, a fickle, unpredictable foe.
The big danger point that I have in the show, in terms of wind, is I breathe fire between my legs. And there's a genuine point where I can't see the flame. Because if you watch the show, I'm always got one eye looking down to see which way the wind is blowing the flame, because I've always got a flame lit next to me. But there is a point, literally, I'm holding it there, and as it goes there, I can't see. And if the wind changes at that point, and it has on occasion come straight back up at me, which is a bit of fun.
What is he doing?
Is he making his pop?
Shock, that's quite nice, actually.
So you're dying to know too, right? Does a fire breather burn himself?
I'm just burnt me nipple.
I get minor burns. The most common burn, corner of the mouth. When I'm fire eating, the wind catch the corner of the mouth. That's a little unpleasant because it takes a while to heal. Roof of the mouth occasionally, but that's just like drinking scalding coffee. It goes very, very quickly. I did, after lockdown, I'd had an 18-month gap where I didn't work. First show that I did the upside down fire blow, set fire to all my chest hair, because I'd rewilded, as somebody said. It hadn't dawned on me, and my beard was maybe a little bit too long, so I had to trim my beard, so I set fire to that a bit.
He has had 2 more serious burning accidents, both of which occurred when he was working with external parties and didn't have sole control of the pyrotechnics. So I asked him the next most obvious question: does he have insurance?
No. I looked into life insurance a few years ago, many years ago, and they went, oh yeah, we'll cover you for life insurance. We won't cover you for fire, we won't cover you, and you go, well, there's no point then really, is there?
It's not just the odd chest hair that Rob puts into his performance. He has put his whole self on stage for everyone to see.
Very much on stage, it's a heightened version of me. I'm not playing a character, I'm playing a larger than life version of me. Possibly the sort of person I want to be, but in real life I'm actually quite shy, which I know nobody would ever believe, but it is true that in my real life I am quite a shy person. I think there's a bit of me that would like to be like this all the time, but it isn't really me. I've always sort of said in certain respects I'm a scared stand-up comedian, in the same way that we were a scared stand-up double act, because we want to make people laugh, but we sort of hid behind props, sort of thing. Whereas I'd love to sort of have that courage to go, right, let's put all this stuff away and just stand up and try and make people laugh. But I've never quite had the nerve to do that.
Rob has chosen a career that is unusual, requires a lot from him physically and mentally, and which doesn't necessarily bring him fame and fortune.
This sort of world is not a world that traditionally would have been held in high regard. It's got better, but it's still, let's be fair, this world has never been held in high regard, full stop. I mean, when we first started, at best we were looked on as buskers, although we never busked, but a lot of the time we were looked on as beggars.
Rob, quite rightly, has chosen this job because it makes him happy, while at the same time brings joy to others. In fact, giving people time to just relax and smile, and watch their loved ones relax and smile too, is what motivates him the most.
I'm more interested in making people laugh than I am anything else. I'm not really that interested in the skill stuff. I mean, considering I've juggled for 40 odd years, I'm really not very good, because I'm not really that bothered about it. Once I did a trick or a routine that I went, an audience will laugh at that's where my interest stops. So hopefully they get a lot of fun. And hopefully, and again, in the same way that, for half an hour on the stage, there is nothing in my head apart from what I'm doing. Hopefully for them, it's exactly the same. They've got half an hour where all the worries and the cares of the world, I mean, I'm maybe being a bit grand here, but, the worries of the world are taken off their shoulders, and all they're concentrating on is just watching me and what have you. Yeah. And I also know from speaking to some of the adults, one of the joys that they get out of it is seeing how much fun their kids are having. There are people who will come and go. The thing I really enjoyed was watching the reaction of the other people in the audience and stuff like that. So that's a lovely thing.
With 44 years of making people laugh, Rob has learned some serious lessons along the way. We asked him to share what he considers vital to living a happy life.
Do something you love. Life is a long, long journey, and it's a long time to be miserable. Do something you love. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, stop it and move on. There's nothing wrong in admitting that you're not enjoying what you're doing. It's not failure. I've done things where I've gone, this isn't working, this isn't right. There's nothing wrong in turning your back on it and going, right, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to learn from that, and I'm moving on. Keep your mind open. I'm still open to, I'm in my 60s, but I'm happy to learn stuff. I'm happy to be proved wrong. I'm not fixed. The world is ever changing, and the world is glorious, and we should embrace whatever is happening and try and make it better as we go along and improve upon it and improve upon ourselves.
He also shares our gratitude for opportunities to learn through travel.
I know, sadly, it's got so much harder than it used to be, but everybody should try and spend some time living abroad, just to live in a different culture, and it just opens the mind again. Spain has been really, really good for me, just in terms of my mental health, because I can be quite manic, and I can have a tendency to say yes to everything, and I've got to be working all the time. And of course, Spanish, their priorities are different.
They have balance.
Yeah, they go, I've got enough money for my family, for my house, for my
table,
yeah,
well,
and it's like, why should I work anymore?
Yeah.
I'd rather spend my time with my friends than, and that's actually been really good for me. It's made me go, oh, actually, yeah, spending time with people is more important than doing every single job that ever turns up.
And his final message to everyone:
support local artists, support local musicians, all that sort of stuff, but it's the grassroots stuff that if you don't support it, those megastars won't happen. They'll go, well, I need to get a proper job.
We couldn't agree more, and congratulate English Heritage for all the fun they have provided at Pendennis today. But of course, this site is about history too, and provides opportunity for visitors to learn while they enjoy themselves. So let's begin our social tourism review with our first criteria: social good.
Pendennis Castle was built as part of Henry VIII's project to build forts across the English coastline to protect the country from France and the Holy Roman Empire, which he had succeeded in royally annoying in his determination to unmarry his first wife. Wow! The castle has been well looked after, and you can walk through the full structure, getting a good feel for what life was like for the people throughout the centuries who lived and worked there.
Isn't it interesting, because they would have had the boats with the Cornish flags on them? Something about the French attack and the burning of Brighton.
There is some information provided in written form with some Cornish translations, and there are plenty of big guns to play with.
Oh, look at this. Cartridge, wadding, shot. Press the red button to fire. But it says to press the red button, so it actually, I can play with this. Woo! Boom, there it goes. Let's see what we hit. Oh, I was aiming for that little boy out there. When I say boy, I meant the one in the water, not like a child. Just to clarify.
He really does like kids, honestly. Opposite the castle is the barracks, built in 1902, which brought the castle out of decline and back into operation as a part of English military defences. Inside, you'll find an exhibition about the role the castle played during both World Wars, which included training and defence planning. The information in this exhibit is extensive, and although there is a lot of reading involved, it really does cover a huge range of perspectives from this time in English history, offering stories from all walks of life. The event days held by English Heritage bring in many more visitors than their usual intake, but Rob explained to us that his type of show is possibly a dying art that still deserves that point of uniqueness.
My concerns are the field that I'm in is a dying art, and there are less and less of us who are doing the type of thing that I do, and I don't know where it's going to come from. English Heritage are struggling for performers that do the type of thing that I do, and I don't know where they're going to find new. When I was young, I was biting at the heels of everybody who was doing this sort of work to try and get it off them. Nobody's doing that, otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it in my 60s. The type of shows that I do, this sort of 30-minute shows of nonsense, that's a dying art. So youngsters are coming through and they're doing spectacular stuff, which is great, and there's obviously a market for it. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the fire performers these days will do sort of like 15 minutes where there's a thumping rave music and, they're doing poi and angle grinders, and it looks incredibly spectacular. It's fantastic. But this circuit, and particularly this historical circuit, there's only two of us that are working this circuit.
We'd like to join Rob in his message to support live entertainers, especially those grassroots.
And go and see live entertainment. People still want, and I sort of genuinely think need live entertainment. It's a completely different thing from film or television or whatever, which I'm not knocking, I'm a great film buff. Live entertainment is a magical thing, and every show you see will always be different, even if that performer has done it 20, 30, 100 times. There will be something different that will happen in every show. AI is not going to take my job away.
We also talked to Rob about how his role as an entertainer in the historical world crosses over into the tourism industry. During our time in Cornwall, we had already met a few locals who had voiced their concerns about how fast tourism had grown in their area, and who told us they were suffering from issues of over-tourism. Rob gave us the other side of the story and expressed a more balanced perspective.
I'll give you an example. I used to live in a tiny little fishing village in the northeast of England. Beautiful place called Staithes. It is now a tourist destination. That's what it is. It used to be a fishing community, but sadly, the fishing industry has died. So when I first moved there was 100 of us that lived down in the bottom of the village. There's now 70 people, and it's getting smaller and smaller. It's becoming more and more holiday cottages and second homes. A lot of the locals complain about it and go, well, it's unaffordable for the locals. And you sort of go, yeah, you're right, and there is an issue. But we've got 2 pubs in this little village. You think about November nights when there's 3 of us in there having 1 pint each. if you got rid of all the tourists, these pubs would go. You wouldn't have those pubs in your village. And 20, 30 years ago, nobody wanted to live at the bottom of this village because there was no central heating, you couldn't have double glazing, there's nowhere to park. So people bought them for stupid sums of money because the locals didn't want to live there. They wanted to live at the top of the hill where there was these nice brand new houses. And now, of course, it's lovely down there. Everybody's going, well, why can't we? We were born here. Why can't we live down there? And it is always a double-edged sword, and it is always a balancing act. And I appreciate that if you live in Cornwall and you live in your village and you work and live there, suddenly you can't park your car because there are tourists everywhere. And and I appreciate tourists can be very bad at just parking their car in front of people's drives and stuff like that. And so you sort of need respect from both sides. The tourists need to behave better, and then I think the locals will be more understanding about it. Without tourism in this area, the restaurants won't be here, the youngsters won't have jobs. We're at a point in the UK where we almost have to go, we are a tourist destination. That is what the major industry is, and we forget that. We talk about some of our industries being the most important. Actually, if you break it down, tourism and hospitality, that's the UK these days. That's where the money is, and it's where the growing industry is. Because for me in the heritage sector, I'm busier and busier every year. There are more and more events going on within heritage sites. And again, that's a double-edged sword, which you've got to be careful about, because again, you want the people in to come and enjoy what's going on, but you've also got to keep protecting the buildings that they're coming to visit. And again, just as an example, I work at Sherwood Forest an awful lot. Sherwood Forest is very, very clever how they manage their site, because there's about 20% of the forest that people go to, because the paths are very cleverly managed. So all of the stuff that they really, really want to preserve, because it's a triple SI site, so there's some very, very important oaks there. And there's an avenue of what they call veteran oaks, which are all over 100 years old. Unless you know they're there, nobody sees them, because the public aren't encouraged to go there. You can go, it's not closed off, but there are no signs, and you've got to know that they're there. So it's all a balancing act.
There are no volunteer activities that we are aware of at Pendennis Castle that would suit tourists. If anyone watching has more information on this, please let us know in the comments.
Treasury. English Heritage is a registered charity who rely on membership fees, entrance fees, and the support of charitable trusts and foundations to help care for their sites and make them available to as many people as possible.
In particular, they have benefited from over £50 million in funding from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. To be honest, this is something that sits a little uncomfortably with Daryl and I. Not being fans of the gambling industry, we worry about the negative effects on individuals, their families, and the community as a whole. Of course, lottery and gambling is perfectly legal in England. We just personally wish that important heritage sites were funded by more socially responsible means. That's our opinion. You're welcome to yours, and you're welcome to let us know how you feel about it in the comments.
Pendennis Castle employs locals and has a range of volunteer roles that offer development opportunities. Rob is also committed to passing on skills to the new generation.
Last year, I took on an apprentice who's now, actually as we speak, he's at Carisbrooke, so he's out doing his own stuff. When we first started, the only way that you learned stuff like this was to find somebody else who was doing it, that would pass skills on. And things like circus in those days was a very, very closed shop. You had to be born into a circus, and they weren't going to tell you the tricks. Whereas I'm really keen now, particularly at my age, to share all of my skills.
We really congratulate Rob on taking the role of mentor. It is wonderful to know these skills will be passed on so that upcoming generations will get to benefit from the joy of silly fun too.
Yep, you're perfectly safe. The front row that's in trouble now. Whoa!
Accessibility. English Heritage do their best in each of their locations to accommodate for as many people as possible. However, they struggle in balancing the authenticity of 500-year-old buildings with accessibility needs.
Whoa, it does say that it's uneven surfaces, so just beware.
Pendennis wasn't built for wheelchairs, and you'll need to be sure-footed to get up and down the stairwells and around the building.
The information provided is all in written form in English. English Heritage have a web page dedicated to access support where you can scroll through to find information about what is provided to support physical, audio, sight and other needs. We asked Rob about accessibility issues in his line of work. What does equality, diversity, and inclusion look like in a jester's workplace?
There are always avenues, and again, the organisation that I'm involved in, but lots and lots of those sort of organisations are always keen on as much accessibility as possible. Certainly, most venues that I work in will be accessible, and it's probably more niche, but there are certainly specific sort of disabled outdoor troops who have made a thing of that. It would be better if it was just general rather than you have an able-bodied and a non-able-bodied. And again, I apologise if those are the terms. Terms change very quickly these days, and I'm always happy to be told I've got the wrong one. But it would be great if it was just a complete mixture. Ethnically, this world is a little bit challenged. I'm not going to lie. So both from an audience point of view, it is predominantly white. Unfortunately, certainly in my world, it's got better over the years. When I first started, it was white men. Street performers were white men, and that was it. It's got better. It's still slightly disappointing that you will now get ethnic street performers still tend to be within their own culture. So you'll get street dance, you'll get Bhangra troops. You don't tend to find somebody from an ethnic background who is just a juggler. I mean, there are, but again, they're still few and far between. There are more women on the circuit than there ever were. Unfortunately, again, they still tend to be in slightly different fields, so that's much more puppeteers and this sort of stuff. It's got better. It is getting better, but it is. There's a lot of change to be made there, and it could be made an awful lot better. We want as much inclusivity as possible. If there are people from that background that want to get into this world, they will find the work there. I think the other thing that's concerning me is also, and it's entertainment in general. It's not just my field, but it's also acting and what have you. It's moving back to being performed by people from a more well-to-do background.
Okay.
When I started, particularly on the street, it was a lot of working class kids and what have you who went, "Oh, I can do that. I can do this." Even acting was there was a lot of working class actors. More and more, it's particularly acting is so badly paid these days. It's done by people who have a cushion somewhere.
Yeah, understood.
And even in this world that I'm living in, it's more and more the middle classes that are becoming performers and less of the working, which is fine. I mean, I'm not, but it's a shame that there isn't that mixture.
Understood.
So yeah, that concerns me.
Rob also acknowledged that the field of entertainment, particularly comedy, has often been used to belittle diverse lifestyles rather than celebrate them. And this is something that upsets him.
I've been a performer a long time. I've seen a lot of change, and I get really annoyed, particularly people my age who do this thing of, "Oh, you can't do anything funny anymore." It's nonsense. We've always been able to make people laugh. What we've done is we've gone, actually, we don't need to do that type of humour to make people laugh. And I was in the vanguard in the 80s when alternative comedy came out, and we were really staunch in that we don't want racist material, we don't want sexist material, we don't, we're trying to change things. And I genuinely thought we'd sort of started to make a inroads on that. It sadly seems to be going downhill a little bit again. But it really annoys me when people come up and do that, "Oh, you can't say anything anymore." It's nonsense. You can. Of course you can. You could still make people laugh. And if you have to use humour like that, then you're not very good. I am very PC. I'm very woke, and proudly so. I was PC in the 80s. I'm woke now, and I'm very, very keen on that. And I will call it out where I see it, and I think it needs to be said. Because, as I said, I can still make people laugh, and I don't have to use any material like that. And if somebody comes up to me and points something out, I won't necessarily agree. I'll listen, and if I think they're right and I agree, then I will stop doing whatever it was that I was doing that they brought up, and I'm more than happy with that.
Relationships. The first point on this star, was it fun, is a quick gold point for sure. I have to say the frivolity of Rob's show, alongside the music, the nights and the castle, really did have us forgetting the more mundane side of modern life. All the information we needed was available to hand and easy to understand. As per usual, in all the English heritage sites we have visited, we were greeted with a warm welcome by all the staff and volunteers. As a live performer, Rob understands that his relationship with the audience is key to his success.
When the double act stopped, the first show I ever did, which was the fire show, lasted 15 minutes. Now, that was largely because suddenly I hadn't got my other partner to go, "Oh." And it took me a while to realise, okay, so my double act partner now is them. And it's a two-way street. And you will notice within the show, there are bits where I'm definitely trying to draw a response out of them, that I will say something, and it doesn't always work, but 90% of the time it works. There are times where audiences will shout things out that just crease me up into laughter, and that, are funny and something that I will come up with, and that's always a glory. It's always joyous.
Because we're English Heritage members, we didn't have to pay the usual entrance fee, making the night's tournament value for money. If you're not a member, you should expect to pay the usual ticket entry charged by many tourism providers in the region. Personally, I have had the fortune to have been able to attend the Great Tewkesbury Medieval Festival, which offers free entry to a weekend created by over 2,000 reenactors and traders from the UK and Europe. So my expectations were perhaps a little high, because the smaller Pendennis event was less spectacular in comparison. But on the other hand, the lack of crowds was peaceful, and the feel was overall quite relaxing.
Sustainability. Balancing the needs of visitors while considering local wildlife and the conservation of rare historic plants is a complex business that English Heritage takes on with considerable care.
Rob also understands the environmental impact of the work he does and tries hard to keep his footprint to a minimum.
It occurs to me all the time. And I'm very, very bad because, I have to drive a van and I have to go wherever the work is. And I do feel bad about it. Personally, I have a very small footprint, because I don't create much doing this. But no, my biggest one is travel, and that's the problem. And I'd love to have the money to go, well, I'll buy myself an electric van, and A, I haven't got the outlay for it, and B, I'm not sure, where would I plug it in when I'm here? I don't know where I would charge it up, and I don't know if it would give me enough charge to get from here all the way up to Newcastle and stuff like that. So it is something I'm consciously aware of. I am part of an organisation called the National Association of Street Artists. We have just put together a policy that we send out to festivals to say, this is our green rider. So I have a green rider that says, this is what we would, in an ideal world, this is what we would like to try and help us offset as much as possible. But it's a tricky one, and I'm not gonna go, no, I'm fantastic, because I do the best that I can.
Pendennis Castle offers visitors recycling options. Their supplier charter requires contractors and suppliers to proactively implement their own sustainability and carbon reduction plans, with the aim of a net zero carbon operation.
Falmouth offers buses to Pendennis, or it is a fairly easy walk from the city centre. While the castle event days are likely to add congestion on the roads, this wasn't noticeable on the day we were there.
We have no information on the particular falconers that were handling birds during the event at Pendennis, but it should be noted that PETA UK do not support the practice of using birds as entertainment. I've put a link in the description to their article if you'd like more information.
Overall, we really enjoyed the night's tournament, but most especially the mix of life lessons and joyous lightness brought by Rob. We'd like to thank him greatly for giving his time and thoughtful words. We've popped up a link to his website in the description, and you can also follow him on Facebook and TikTok. We hope you get to catch his shows somewhere soon.
I have no intention of retiring or stopping, because I love what I do, and I don't know what else I would do.
And that you'll hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you can follow us on our travels too.
Next, we're off to another one of Cornwall's treasures, the magnificent site of Tintagel Castle, said to be the place that conceived the legendary King Arthur. We hope you'll join us there. Until then, happy travels everyone!